psych and various things, and birth trauma was one of the things that we have information on. All right, I have to figure that one out for the future. So, welcome again. This is EMDR News, where we're going to be talking about everything mental health ish, especially with a focus on EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Uh, Usually, how we start is just kind of going over what's new, what's happening, and then move into working on items such as the subject of the day. We had originally planned these. Let me see here. Hello? Yeah. Can you hear me now? All right. Sorry, somebody from the studio said that they weren't hearing me. I was getting a little worried. All right. So, as I was saying, yeah, we're going to be talking about not military sexual trauma today. If we have time, we might. Can't get into it as deeply as I'd like to. So we're going to put further on in the month. It's August. Uh, Probably, while I'm down, maybe even next week. So I'll be down in or over in California for the EMDRNew conference, and I'll be reporting from there. I'll probably be talking about military sexual trauma that Friday. So again, the MGA conference is in Anaheim, California, and that will be this coming in 2 weeks. So it's not this weekend, not next weekend, but the following weekend, right? I'll be there early, so I'll be there basically all week. I'll be there Monday through maybe Sunday night through. Yeah, Sunday or Monday through the next Sunday. So I'll be there all week. If you see me, feel free and tug me to the side and say hello. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic time while you're there. Just a reminder that the early bird special pricing is not there anymore, so we missed out on that. The ISTSS conference is going to be in San Antonio, Texas, and that's going to be on in September. So it's like the third week of September, and I'll be down there. And every time I come on here, I tell you how much I love the San Antonio and the Riverwalk, and that's exactly where this is. So when you look at the Riverwalk, it goes like right through the city, a little canal. And on either side, there are a bunch of different restaurants and stuff that you can go to. One end of the canal is a mall, and I'm not even quite sure where the other end goes. I haven't walked the entire thing, but right next to the Riverwalk, you can walk to it from the Riverwalk is the Alamo, and the Alamo is weird, right? Because you turn around, you're looking at the Alamo, you turn around, and you're looking at a city, and you're looking at skyscrapers and stuff like that. So it's pretty wild how things have built up around it. In October is the EMDR Humanitarian Assistance Program Conference. That'll be in South Carolina. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it there, but otherwise, please do go there and, you get your CEUs or whatever you're interested in doing that. Both the EMDR Humanitarian Assistance Program and the EMDR International Association, or EMDRIA, are non-for-profits. So just keep that in mind as well. You're supporting good causes in either case. All right. So again, today we're going to have a guest, and that guest is Sebastian Fastrich, and he's old buddy of mine, I suppose. This is somebody that I worked with for a little while down in Florida. We have both left Florida and are probably dying to go back. Right. So let me go ahead and bring him on, and we can start this process and introduce him a little bit and what he's going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Oh, that's me twice. Let's see here. I got two of you, Sebastian. I'm hopefully pick the right one. All right, can't hear you yet. Are you still unmuted? We have technical difficulties. Let me can't unmute their mic. Mic isn't connected. All right, let me try the other one.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah, I had this. So again, you have two talking heads down here, and I got to figure out which one was the one that we can actually talk to. All right, excellent. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, and yeah, what you're going to talk about today.
Well, first of all, good morning, Doc. It's great seeing you again, and thank you for everything you did for me early on in my career as a licensed clinical social worker down in South Florida. Doc was instrumental for me early on, just as a registered intern down there in the licensure process. Working on getting credentialed. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. You're a pillar to me. You're a pillar of the community. You did a lot, the Miami VA, and I look up to you a lot, Doc. EMDR News is certainly, I think it's a space that we need. As a veteran, I know a lot of my veterans always ask about EMDR, where they can get the trauma assistance because we're so limited at the VA. But I just wanted to throw that out there with the EMDR News and what you've done and what you did with me. It's huge, and I can't thank you enough for the support you've always provided, even after all those years. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Definitely, you're welcome. And yeah, if you need anything, just let me know. Just reach out. And I appreciate you being here. Right. So that's great. And yeah, so you've gone through the VA a little bit, right? You started down in West Palm, and yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. You asked a little bit about me. I guess first of all, I'm an OIF combat vet. I was a 19 kilo originally. I was stationed at Fort Bliss, El Paso, Texas, 4th Brigade, 1st Armored Division. Deployed to Iraq 2009, 2010 as a Bob Gary Owen. Came back home.
What's that 14 kilo?
Oh, a 19 kilo.
That's what I meant.
Oh, a 19 kilo? I was a tanker. Abrams tank, M1, A2, yeah. Abrams tank. But I only did one tank gunnery. I often joke that I was a part of my language here, but I was a twat. I was a tanker without a tank in Iraq. By that time in the war, yeah. We were all on.
And that's an acronym. So
an acronym, of course, yeah. And yeah. We were all on MRAPs and Humvees by then, and so yeah.
Yeah, and it's perfectly fine for you and me and most of the veterans to talk about things without actually explaining them. But right now we're live on a thing, so sometimes these people watching, when they do watch, or have no idea what that is or any of those things are. So that's why I interrupted you to say that. So I apologize.
Yeah, no, sometimes I'm so used to within the VA, being around veterans. It's kind of like my whole world is veterans, and I'm very grateful for the VA and giving me an opportunity. It's where I really feel at home. It's my people, kind of. It's they say do something you love, and certainly I had my struggles in the military, in the Army. And then after the Army, I struggled for a while, and certainly, being able to help others and give back in a clinical capacity has been huge. But long story short, yeah, I worked down in West Palm Beach VA for a number of years. I did inpatient psychiatry, social work. I did outpatient
There you go.
substance use disorder. So I was outpatient SUD for I was about a year and a half, 2 years in inpatient psych. Trying to get everybody resources. Whether it was placement, IOP, outpatient, PHP, partial hospitalization, residential treatment. Um, you know, it ran the gamut down in South Florida. You saw all sorts of things. Of course, the homelessness. Now up here, we moved up here. My wife's still active duty.
Hmm.
So my wife, she's active duty Coast Guard. She'll be retiring with 20 years here in the next 2 years. She's a chief.
Awesome.
And so that's why we're up here in Detroit. And I'm grateful I have an opportunity to continue to serve my brothers and sisters as HUD-VASH social workers. And now my primary focus now is housing and
And
that.
so what does HUD-VASH mean?
So essentially, what we do in HUD-VASH is we're paired with HUD, and then we also have the VA case management, VASH vouchers. So housing and urban development is of course the big acronym there, HUD, and then the VASH, the VA supportive housing, and that's kind of what I do, and that's kind of the acronym. I kind of developed a quick little PowerPoint, just an overview, but I think it's
Mhm.
important that we talk about it. There's a lot of nuances. Of course, the VA, it's full of nuances, but it's always important if you're trying to get connected with resources to contact your local VA. Things are ever evolving. I was just talking with one of my veterans earlier this morning. There's some new resources that are coming out. Kind of waiting on guidance on those, and but yeah, housing first for homeless veterans. And
Okay.
exactly what I put there. It's a collaborative program between HUD and the VA, and really it came to fruition. We had something going on in the early '90s, but in 2008 is when it really took off.
Hmm. Okay. And um, can you tell me a little bit about what the problem is? Like, what's the scope of the problem for veterans homelessness?
Well, I mean, it's national. Of course, I mean, it's national. You hear it on the news. You hear maybe certain population centers. Specifically, I can talk about, of course, I'll talk about where I work, South Florida, and then of course here in Detroit, Michigan. For us in HUD-VASH, it's the chronically homeless. The guys and gals are veterans that are chronically homeless, not necessarily, hey, I've even though it can't, again, nuance here, I've just
Hmm.
lost my place. It's the ones that are we continuously kind of end up in this perpetual cycle of homelessness, and we're trying to case manage them and wrap around resources around them. And
Yeah.
it looks a little in each pocket of the country. I'll speak for Detroit and West Palm Beach. It's it's quite serious. And
Hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, I know that in 2025 they did one of those was it pits, right, where they go and do a
Mhm.
one night version of what's happening, and it was 32,500, like a little under that. Um, so it's pretty significant still. But there was a good statistic that I saw that 96.2% that do get permanently housed, that they have remained permanently housed within that fiscal year. So that it's good some of the work that we're doing. I know in New Jersey, which is where I'm stationed, well, stationed where I'm sitting. In New Jersey, we have that. Was it that? I forget how to phrase it. Maybe you could help me. But it's like that net zero thing, where we still have veteran homelessness, yes, but at the same time, we're able to get people housed more than we find veterans being homeless. Is that the definition of that? How does that
Yeah, I
zero
would
thing
say
work?
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it sounds weird.
But yeah, I mean, we're trying to exactly. I think eventually get to zero.
Yeah.
That's the goal. But it's an ongoing issue, and I think even within the non-veteran population,
Yep.
we're having that.
Yeah, I had that statistic for how many are outside as far as the vouchers and how many vouchers we have. So go ahead. Let's go ahead before I throw out questions you're probably going to answer. Let's go ahead and have you do your PowerPoint, okay? And I'll step back as you do that. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, no, and again, I appreciate the time y'all are taking through the giving me a chance to present on HUD Vash, and
Hmm.
of course wearing red, and everything going on right now with our men and women overseas, and coming back, and I implore everyone, just when you get home, even if you're not deployed, try to get involved with the VA. I know there's a lot of different things out there, or maybe stigma. We really have tried to improve, and there are people that really do care. So you got Dr. Vermillion, you know combat vet. I'm a combat vet. There's people within the system that, and even that aren't vets, we all do really care. So please, implore everybody to try to get plugged in with the VA, as soon as at when they're discharging or whatnot. So yeah, so HUD Vash again, Housing First for Homeless Veterans. I think I mentioned it's a collaborative program between HUD and the VA. I think what's unique is we're and there's a lot of different opinions about this, but we are housing first. We're not a treatment first model. That's unique. Down in South Florida, I kind of was brought up. There's a lot of substance use disorder treatment facilities. I was kind of brought up, and this is personal, but I was kind of brought up in a 12-step mind frame, and kind of a treatment first model. But we're housing first. Housing comes first. You don't need to get sober in order to, or even mental health conditions, right? Because it's a lot of comorbidities with different mental health related disorders here. No treatment compliance. We're just focused solely on trying to get you stabilized around the housing, and then we believe we can wrap around these services once we start that, get you stable with the housing and start bringing these other services in. Other programs, of course, require housing readiness, quote unquote, before the placement. We don't. We're just kind of, when our engagement social workers or HCHV, when we do the assessment, it's kind of, I'll get into that with the next slide. We're just looking at, do you meet the criteria, and let's move forward. I don't really have to judge on, of course, I need to work with you if you're, using or all that. Like, there's components in that, like, that's why we're not really keeping the housing. But at that time, I just need to worry about getting you housed. VA case managers, of course, we walk with them every step of the way, from the housing search through long-term stability. And that's the key here, and from the initial start point, we're helping them find the housing. Of course, there's background checks, there's credit checks. Thank God for our nonprofits, SSVF, and SSVF. It's all encompassing supportive services for veteran and families. Each, again, it's so much to kind of pack into such a short segment, but every community and every VA is connected with an SSVF partner. I don't know if down in South Florida or in West Palm it was Faith, Love, Hope Charities. Mission United. Up here, we got Volunteers of America, My Side, really wonderful, wonderful partners we work with, and stability makes it easier for us to kind of, work on, me getting you connected with, my psychologist, my psychiatrist, my primary care physicians. That's the model. You have to beat some, there's some misconceptions, you get on, certain blogs, and it's just like, go see the social worker down at your local VA. They'll get you plugged in and you'll immediately get housed somewhere, you're eligible. And then, I always hate to be the social worker that is the bearer of bad news. It's like, well, hold on, there's this McKinney-Vento definition of homelessness. You have to be eligible for VA care, but again, there's nuances because, there's we do accept, general under honorable conditions. We do accept different types of discharges. Again, we need to look at the whole picture of the veteran. It starts with assessment. That's why it's very key. It's not a one size fits all. And then, of course, you need ongoing case management. You need somebody like Sebastian or another social worker, showing up and helping you with ongoing supportive services, wraparound care to sustain your housing. But the primary target is, those homeless, chronically homeless veterans with complex needs. Whether that's, substance use, severe mental illness, sometimes and chronic medical issues. We have an aging population. We have an aging veteran population as well. And that's something we're starting to come to terms with, I think, as well, when it comes to our aging veterans. The McKinney-Vento definition, a person is homeless if they lack fixed, regular, adequate nighttime residence, live in a place not meant for human habitation. So if you tell me you're in a car park, abandoned building, you're staying in an emergency shelter or transitional housing. So if you're, staying at our local Volunteers of America or Michigan Foundation, Veterans Foundation, it's one of these shelters, that's a qualifier. Will imminently lose housing and have no other resources or support networks, or fleeing from a domestic violence, or similar threats, or lack alternative housing. Those are all some of the McKinney-Vento definitions of homelessness. It's not just, I want to move. I'm, this is unaffordable. I'm tired of where I'm at. I'm, some of these other little things that, sometimes we'll hear. Now, how much does the voucher cover? This is, often get this, it's 30% of the tenant share. So the total tenant payment. So the adjusted monthly income, and that kind of goes through here. The area of medium income is kind of different. If you live in my zip code, it may be different than if you live in somebody down near my hospital in Wayne County zip code. So we have to look at the area of median income. Of course, if you're getting zero money, if you have a zero income, you're not working right now, you're just getting out of treatment, something like that. You're not getting SSDI, SSI, service connection. Our public housing authority is probably going to pay, the entirety of your rent. But of course, they're going to ask us or my veterans to do the reassessments, and I'll probably come out and help them. Actually, I will come out and help them complete those reassessments and submit those. And if they start working or the income goes up, then their portion will go up. But the tenant generally is only going to pay, or the veteran is only going to pay 30% of their monthly income. Of course, the income counted for the tenant share, wages, Social Security, SSDI, most other income. Now, VA disability compensation, now you can see it's excluded for eligibility. So up to 80% of the area of median income, but that can differ. What it looks like in LA may look different than what it looks like in Miami-Dade, may look different than what it looks like down in Wayne, in Detroit Metro. So again, we need to kind of run the numbers and figure that out. You may be over income, you may have too much coming in, or the voucher may only pay 120 some odd dollars or $50, or is it worth going through all this? But it's not included, when calculating the initial tenant portion, but it may on the re-eval. So there's a lot of nuances here. It's not instant, if, this was something in the inpatient psych unit, we would often come up against. It's like, yes, I can place a HUD-VASH consult, and get you screened and get you with, the HCHV social worker or the engagement social worker and get the assessment done. Do you meet the McKinney-Vento criteria? Do you meet all this? But this is kind of a process here. I'm not to plug my, our program here in Detroit, but, our chief, our mental health service, social work chief, they've done a really great job of streamlining this and really getting our program on track. We're getting our veterans house really fast, like within like 30 days, give or take. Don't completely quote me, but we're really that they always impress me, our engagement team and our supervisors, on how fast we get them in. I'm more on the case management side. So once they're housed, my job is to keep them housed and stable. But it starts with an assessment. So the continuum of care network that we have, and then, or the healthcare for homeless veterans, we would get the consult. They would do the assessment. So it always starts with a very deep assessment. The outreach with our engagement social worker for a further assessment, determination of clinical eligibility and case management needs, and then, send it off to, our public housing authority. And, it is exactly what I said. The process prioritizes the right fit and support over speed. But I will say, not to shamelessly plug our program, we do a really good job in Detroit on getting our guys and gals what they need pretty quickly. But again, this is not an instant process. And if you need something instant, we have other things, whether that's transitional housing, or maybe you need to go to treatment. Maybe you do need residential treatment while we work on the housing piece. Do you need me to stop for anything, Doc? Okay. So yeah, I think
you're doing great.
I think you referenced these numbers earlier. This came from a recent report. And we were very proud of these numbers. 51 close to 52,000 unique veterans. Yeah, so uniques are kind of untouched or new veterans permanently housed in fiscal year 2025. That's a big deal. You can see over from 2023, 2024, 2025, we've consistently gone up and really prioritized this as a goal, as a VA. It was the best on record. The stats speak for themselves. I think you referenced this number, the 25,000 unsheltered veterans moved into housing via outreach. That was the PIC counts that we have going out and us going out and just actively engaging maybe veterans that were lost in the system, the ones that were hard to get. I can see faces and some of the guys and gals I work with personally that were gotten from these and having to get the documentation and things like that didn't even know they were eligible or what this program was. So, and what my engagement team does. So I won't plug their names, but I'm very proud of our engagement social workers. Key takeaways: it's housing first. No treatment treatment conditions. It's not universal. So it's just, you do have to meet certain criteria. It's not just like, hey, show up and, there's a voucher waiting for you know, each individual veteran. There is certain criteria you do have to meet. We do need to do an assessment, either the local continuum of care or the HCHV social worker or even an engagement social worker generally will do that. It's not immediate. So this isn't like if we need to get you into something like right now, there's some other options, whether that's transitional housing or maybe even, I know it's kind of scary, but we have some other shelters or grant per diem, things like that we can work on. It's not pretty at first, but we're trying to move you into permanent housing. And then, and of course, in fiscal year 2025, we had, close to 56,000 unique veterans permanently housed. I think that's a statistic, we can be proud of, and we're continuing to try to exceed that. We don't want to see anybody homeless or struggling. That life is hard enough, and we're all trying our best, to work with everybody, and it's a very difficult population. It's very difficult job and workload, and the resources are ever changing, and so we're all doing our best there. But yeah, here's some key resources. If you think you meet this criteria, you've got somebody on your caseload that you need to get set up. I always, the National Call Center for Homeless Veterans. That's a great place to start. Just to kind of get them referred into the local VA system. Like, hey, this is the contact there. The Veterans Crisis Line. You can go on of course, the va.gov/homeless. We've got great resources there. And then, your local VA medical center. There's a healthcare for homeless veterans walk-in, the VRC, the Veterans Resource Center. There's individuals right there that can answer these questions, start the process, and start getting you kind of plugged into, the HUD Bash team. There
at large. All right, I'll share that PowerPoint. Also, there are a couple questions that came up here, or a couple things I wanted to see if you wanted to touch on. The government accounting offices found only that 70% of effective HUD-VASH vouchers were released in fiscal year 2024, right? And 14% of HUD-VASH case manager positions remain vacant. How does this have an impact on getting people housed, or, what can you say to that?
Okay, so here I'll do it like I'm doing an interview. What was the first question?
I mean, it's the 77%. It's a large number of the effective HUD vouchers released, which means that 23% weren't, right? So where does that 23% end up going? Like, what happens to that?
So I can only speak for for my program. I'll speak for the Detroit VA. Every voucher is essentially like our chief, essentially. That's not like allowed, at least here in Detroit. Like all of our VASH vouchers, and of course, you're kind of speaking in silos. It's big VA, and I always try to describe this with veterans. You have big VA or VHA, right? But we kind of speak in silos here. Essentially,
if you've been to one VA, you've been to one VA.
You've been exactly that would be unacceptable to my social work chief. Every one of those vouchers really needs to be utilized, and if it's not, there's an issue. And of course, that number, from 2024, I mean, that makes sense. And, I could see where that's coming from with different localities, and each kind of area is different, I guess, with what units they have available. You got to figure as well with public housing authorities. You're dealing with the local public housing authority. Now, not putting it back
Yeah.
on the local public housing authority. Sometimes it's VA. Hey, sometimes we screw the pooch. I'm not going to say the VA. Sometimes Sebastian, I screw the pooch on something. I make mistakes, but there it's kind of complex. How
Yeah.
we've had to work with our public housing authority and our VA to get to where our vouchers are being utilized at pretty much close to 100%. The
Yeah.
other the other question I think was key too.
Staffing.
Staffing. That's something outside, that's something, we could always use more staff. To me, my caseload, it's humongous. I wonder I remember, of course, in our interviews, it's like, well, how do you manage? It's always been like that, whether it was inpatient psych or IOP in the outpatient SAT, substance abuse treatment program, or, here in HUD-VASH. It's like, how do you prioritize your caseload? And I think that's difficult. We could always use more people. It's, I guess, I don't know, funding, or I think that's something, I guess that's way bigger than me.
Yeah. I know you only got a couple more minutes with us today. I just wanted to throw out a couple things before you leave. That there is this question about, and this is not necessarily a question. Excuse me, not necessarily a question for you, but there is this idea of housing first and what that means. And I was trying to figure out, why. And so I was looking online, and I found that the research actually does support that, right? So the available research shows that housing first improves housing stability. Yes, and it's consistent, and it's substantial. Ken, maybe case by case, that might not be what you're experiencing if you're a veteran and dealing with HUD-VASH and homelessness, but so far that's what the research shows. Does treatment or sobriety have to precede housing? The answer is no. An RCT or randomized trials do not show worse psychiatric or substance use outcomes when those preconditions are removed. And does housing automatically improve PTSD, addiction, or psychiatric symptoms? And I thought this would be the case. It would make sense that if you had housing, then you have that like bottom of the hierarchy needs with Maslow. But no, clinical effects are smaller and inconsistent. So should mental health care wait until after move-in? No, if you need mental health care, get it. But at the same time, right, it's a different position with what Sebastian's been talking to us about. And then is housing first? Is it housing first? Services optional, but service specific treatment should not be coerced. But HUD-VASH includes case management and support, as far as we can tell. Any thoughts about those things? With just any 2 cents that you want to
It
put out
is
there?
it is part of the requirement that they do meet with us. Like, we have different stages, whether they're on stabilization, intensive stabilization, maintenance, prep for discharge, maintenance. They meet with us at least once a month. Intensive kind of weekly, stabilization bi-weekly, prep for discharge is kind of more every 90 days, not nearly as much, but it is kind of required. Like, and if they're not meeting with us, I'll start sending letters, nasty grams, things like that. It is kind of required as part of the program, and it's kind of in my letter, like, hey, part of the stipulation of this is that you do require case management. Why aren't you following up?
And this case management therapy
can be, sometimes, I am licensed clinical social worker. So some of my guys don't engage with, I try to get them. It's like, hey, I really need you to see, it'd be really great if you would. I'm that type that sometimes, and I still get into this. I want to force people, drink the water, get into, you do individual psychotherapy with my psychologist. Or at least go see the psychiatrist, or but a lot of them won't, but they will
Mm.
engage with me. They have rapport with me, and they will talk to me. And so, yeah, sometimes I will be doing individual psychotherapy. Is that case management? No, I bill it under, you know, psychotherapy.
Got
Is
it.
it officially? No, I could put in consults to BHIP. I could put in consults,
Okay.
to other, other clinicians.
And for those that don't know, BHIP is like the second or third rung up. You got like primary care mental health integration, which is mental health providers within the context of your primary care environment, and then you have a little bit of a higher level of care when you go to BHIP, and they're usually pretty strict on trying to get you the most evidence-based therapy that they can find for you. All right, excellent. So we are at 7:15, and I know that you have to go and do the good work that you do. I appreciate you for coming in. And I'm going to stay on for a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the mental health aspects of this. And I would love it if you could, you know, try to put it on something so you could listen to it on your way to wherever you're headed. Again, thank you for the work you're doing. And any last words before you log off today?
No, again, Doc, thank you for everything you do for the veteran community, the VA, of course, and, EMDR News. It's a great resource. Um, and I can't thank you enough for giving me the time and everybody listening, giving me an opportunity to share just a little bit about what VA and our team does in HUD Bash. And, I didn't probably do them enough justice, but they are miracle workers. And, yeah, thank you so much, Doc, and I love you, man. And yeah, it's great to see you, and you help me so much, and you are an inspiration. You do so much, and you've got so many credentials, and you're all over. It's like, oh my gosh. So yeah. Why can't I hear you now? Can you hear me? You can hear me. Well, I'll bow out. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
All right, let me see if we got sound. We got sound back. All right, excellent. So it looks like my microphone died on me. So thank you for pointing that out, Sebastian. Hopefully, you got out pretty well. So that was awesome. Sebastian was able to kind of give us a little bird's eye view, or maybe even a little more in depth understanding of what is going on with the HUD-VASH, the Veterans Housing. One of the things that we didn't get into too much is the mental health aspect of things, and whether mental health can, or how mental health impacts or is impacted by homelessness, right? We did talk a little bit about it, but we didn't get too deeply into it. And it's an important aspect of things, especially here in the EMDR News, where we're trying to determine, how best we can help our clients in their given situations. And so in the case of homelessness, there's a lot of different things that can happen. What led the person into homelessness, right? What's happening in their day to day, their evictions, their dealings with landlords, what's happening in that terms of those items and those issues that are approachable through the work that we do, the mental health piece. So we could do the whole assignment or assessment and explore what's going on in terms of a veteran for this example, and how they got homeless, right? It could be PTSD. It could be post-traumatic stress disorder. It could be that people feel trapped when they're in four walls, right? With little escape on some level, right? You have a back door and a front door, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's uncomfortable for them, and they prefer not to be housed. And so, what does that even mean in terms of working with people that have that mental health concern, and how can we help? So we can think or imagine that EMDR might be helpful in working with those types of clients and those types of issues. The the biggest piece, I think, in terms of exploring this topic, is to recognize that not everybody's the same. Everybody that's going through this process and they're homeless have different needs, and based on their needs, we would cater to or decide how best to do the sorry, hold on one second. There we go. How best to treat them. I mean, it's obvious, right? We do a good assessment and find out what's going on. But that assessment can include homelessness and what's happening in those moments that they are becoming homeless. The shame, the guilt sometimes, especially if it's involving other people, other family members, right? That could be pretty significant. So, there is a place for mental health treatment, and there is a place for EMDR, right? Because EMDR is a memory-based therapy. We go and look for memories that are stored maladaptively, and we go and change how those memories are stored by using the EMDR research protocol. And again, I use research protocol instead of standard protocol because the research protocol, people tend to drift and they use the standard protocol as if it's like a last resort or something like that. That's the standard protocol, but it's the research protocol, and it's research, which means that it's been through multiple RCTs, which means it's been with a lot of people. Yes, there is an argument about certain illnesses and issues that are not always included within those RCTs. But at the same time, the best evidence that we have is that the research version of EMDR it works, right? Because that's what it says. So we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So if there is something that is amiss with the researched version of EMDR, we can integrate and work within the context of the resources that we have, but we don't want to be changing the definition. We don't want to be moving away from the definition that withholds EMDR. Um, I saw yesterday, in terms of EMDR, that EMDR 2.0 is coming out with a manual. So that's exciting. They sound excited about it too. So I'm looking forward to it. I've been trained in EMDR 2.0, and again, it's a good adjunctive piece to researched EMDR, right? The researched EMDR protocol. All right. So again, veterans homelessness, lots of stuff can happen in terms of keeping them within the system, right? Having them stay within the HUD-DASH system, even though it's a good statistic that 92% or so remain housed once they're permanently housed. Getting housed is the issue. Generally, across the country, we're doing really well at getting our veterans housed. Again, it's not perfect. We still have veterans that are homeless, um, and some veterans, have issues to where they don't want people coming to their homes, right, because of their PTSD symptoms. And that makes it difficult to have the inspections that are required. So stuff like that gets in the way, and then they're put into the predicament of having to do um, eviction stuff, right? So they're put into that predicament of having to deal with that. So I know that the HUD-Dash has case management, and the case management can be helpful. And as Sebastian said, we do some work there. We do some work in terms of therapy when it's needed. But it's good to note that the statistics do show that it's not a required thing where you need the therapy in order to benefit from housing or vice versa. All right. So we are running out of time. So that's where I'm going to leave you. Monday, we're going to do the preparation phase of EMDR. And yeah, that's one of my favorite things. So look forward to working with you on Monday. I will try to put this out a second time today, just for people that missed the morning, but also it should be remaining live on the feed as well. All right, everybody, have a great day, a great Friday, great weekend, and I'll see you Monday. Tim Vermillion from EMDR News.